brought my own lectern here, so let me read off. So this is a personal essay about my existential conundrum. Where are you from? My stomach plummets. Anxiety billows through my chest. I feel flushed as expectant eyes train on me. My brain automatically flicks into processing mode. Do I tell the long version or the short version? Is this person worth the long version? Am I ever going to see them again? Do I even have the energy to tell the long version? And if I do tell them the long version, I might get that fucking annoying comment, but you don't have an accent. Or should I just tell them the short version? It really is so much easier. It allows people to stow me in that cozy cubbyhole of relatability. I'll be spared the glazed over look of incredulity, the shift of conversation that time and again has invalidated my upbringing, invalidated me as an oddity. But I have to remember, if I do the short version, I can't use any words that will betray my difference. And I'll go short. New Jersey. Relief, I'm out of it. But I feel slightly false. I'm not being wholly true. Not to them, I don't give a shit about them, but to myself. I'm leaving out a walloping chunk of my story, of the stuff that actually made me, me. But I am used to hiding myself, because this question, where are you from, the polite pigeonholing inquiry of tedious talk and cocktail conflab, has caused me exquisite anguish my whole life. Because I don't have an answer, because I am not from anywhere. I was born in New Zealand. I should have been born in the copper mining town of Mafulira, in what was then northern Rhodesia in the waning days of British colonial Africa. My father, from sheep country amid the soaring mountain peaks of New Zealand, worked as a mine foreman. My mother, from the seafaring city of Plymouth, England, was a nurse at the mine hospital. When she was about to give birth to me, my father whisked her off to New Zealand, and I entered the world. A few months later, we were on the move. Over the first 5 years of my life, Dad's job took us to Fiji, England, Sweden, Nigeria, and back to New Zealand, where I started school and prophetically won a prize for writing interesting stories. Then we moved to Australia. I spent the formative years of my childhood in Sydney, so I thought that became my home, or my identity, so I thought. I was a shade shy of 13 when we moved to the United States. That's where the New Jersey bit comes in. I was put in 9th grade because I was so far ahead academically, but I was way behind in American teenagerdom. I'd never owned a pair of Levi's or shopped at a mall. No one understood my accent or words I used. Teachers marked my British spellings as mistakes. Everything about me was wrong. What I did have no longer counted. Whenever I mentioned anything about Australia, I'd get blank looks or asked if I'd had a pet kangaroo. Then the conversation would change to a topic that was more normal. I got the message. My background was unworthy. So I stowed it in the deep crevices of memory so I could fit in, so I could belong. My accent eventually faded, and I became an American teenager. When I was 19, I returned to Australia for a visit. I thought I could finally be my true self. I was in for a grand disappointment. I was now seen as American. Friends and family had turned into tongue-tied strangers, and I felt like a tourist, discomforting in a place I thought I'd claimed. The Sydney I'd known as a little girl had transformed. Change is unavoidable, of course. The emigre's native home is inevitably trapped in the islet of era. Without the benefit of gradualness, the change seemed harsh, sudden. I felt like my childhood hadn't really existed. It was there when I left, gone when I returned. I never went back after that trip. There didn't seem much point. I had to definitively sever the tethers, let the past drift into the ether, and moor myself to the present, to where I was, America. I became a newspaper reporter in New Jersey. Everyone assumed I was from North Jersey, and I never corrected them. My facade was so perfect that when I did tell the story of my childhood to a guy I was dating, he accused me of making it up. Journalism was the perfect career for me. The focus was always on someone else, never myself. But it wasn't long before my unquiet upbringing that had addicted me to novelty and adventure boomeranged back. Over the next decade, I lived in Spain, Guatemala, and Venezuela. I traveled all over Latin America, writing for Time, Business Week, Financial Times, Miami Herald, and many others. People assumed I was American, of course, and reinforced by the fact that I now had a U.S. passport, although I'd never learned to sing the Star-Spangled Banner or eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. My lack of identity soon began to claw at me, because I didn't really feel American. So where did I fit in? How did I belong? I grew to resent my parents for trucking me around the world. I envied those who had hometowns, who had grown up with the same kids, who had had the same neighbors their whole lives. I compared myself to immigrants who had landed in enclave communities in their new countries. There'd be no Australian enclave where I could buy meat pies and Marmite in New Jersey. But after much angst, I gave up. I decided to simply belong to where I was. That would be my home. After 10 years abroad, I tucked the whole thing away and I returned to the United States, where yet again I drew the drapes on myself, first in Miami, then in Los Angeles. It was in LA where the moths found that curtain. The similarities between Southern California and Australia forced an unexpected unearthing of a buried souvenir. The sun-baked summers and the mild, wet winters mirrored Sydney's climate. There was a Pacific Coast Highway, similar to Sydney's Pacific Highway, that I used to walk along to school every day. In LA, I passed eucalyptus trees, their bark peeling in great curled sheets to reveal ghostly white trunks. We'd had a towering gum tree in the back garden in Sydney, cackling kookaburras perched on its branches before swooping down to snatch the raw strips of meat my mother would hang on the clothesline for them. California is now where I have lived the longest. I am still restless. I still experience that hiccup of shyness and panic when asked where I'm from. I suppose that will never really go away. But I'm trying a new thing, a sense of acceptance, a place of permanence. This is as close to home as I will get, and that will just have to do.